At 7:30 a.m., Isabella Sterling got out of bed. She walked out of the bedroom in a silk robe, her long hair slightly messy, her eyes still hazy with the languor of someone who had just woken up. When she saw me, standing by the dining table with a coffee, she paused, then a faint, wistful smile appeared. "Ethan," she whispered instinctively, calling his name again. The name of the man I was paid to be. "Good morning, Ms. Sterling." I smiled, not bothering to correct her as I handed her the mug. "Your coffee is ready." She snapped back to reality in an instant. The softness in her eyes vanished, replaced by the cool, aloof demeanor of the CEO. She was right. She took the coffee and sipped it, her brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. "Too hot?" I asked. She didn't answer, but I knew I was right. Damn, is this woman's tongue a thermometer? I thought. All I did was bring it out a minute earlier today. "My apologies. I'll be more careful next time," I said, my face a mask of professional courtesy. In my head, I silently added a new line item to my final invoice, frowny face ancillary services. Enduring client nitpicking. $50 pain and suffering surcharge. Don't bother. Ethan is flying back tomorrow afternoon. Your contract is fulfilled. Hell yes, the ghost was finally returning. I knew what this meant. My career as a professional stand-in was heading for a glorious early retirement. And since she was terminating the contract ahead of schedule, I still got the full fee. Jackpot. "Leo," she said, her voice lower than usual. "Starting tomorrow, you don't need to come in anymore." I blinked, fighting back the urge to pump my fist in the air. Instead, I put on my best professional smile. "Of course, Ms. Sterling. I have the stand-in services contract termination agreement right here. If you could just sign it." I produced the document I had prepared ages ago. When her eyes fell on the detailed invoice attached, her brow tightened again. "And this is the final invoice for the duration of the contract," I added, sliding the thick stack of itemized charges in front of her. "This covers 3 years of service. After accounting for payments already made, the remaining balance comes to a total of $180,000. Feel free to review it. If everything is in order, I'll just need your signature. I accept credit, wire transfer, or Zelle." Isabella stared at the lengthy invoice, her expression turning sour. Whatever. According to the contract, this was all due upon termination. I had bags to pack this afternoon. My new life of blissful unemployment was about to begin. The first time I met Isabella Sterling 3 years ago, she looked at me like I was a piece of furniture she was considering buying, and it made my skin crawl. She sat in the corner of a coffee shop, her fingertips tapping on the table as her gaze scraped across my face. "Smile," she commanded. I complied, curving my lips into a perfect imitation, 3 parts gentle, 7 parts distant. The standard-issue smile of the idealized ex. Her breath hitched. She quickly regained her composure and slid a contract across the table. $20,000 a month. On call 24/7. My immediate thought was, this woman has more money than sense. This will be easy. Turns out, I was only half right. Isabella gave me a photo album filled exclusively with pictures of Ethan Cole. The angle at which he held his coffee cup, the way he knotted his tie, the precise crinkle of his eyes when he smiled. "Study these," she said, her voice like ice. "I want a perfect copy." I spent 3 days practicing in front of a mirror until the muscle memory was more ingrained than instinct. On my first official day, I made a mistake. I served her coffee a few degrees too cool. She took 1 sip and smashed the mug on the floor. "Get out." Later, I learned she was abnormally sensitive to temperature. I also learned that Isabella hated it when I spoke. To be more precise, she hated it when I spoke with Leo Hayes' voice. "Don't make a sound," she would whisper, covering my mouth during moments of intimacy. "Your voice. It's not like his." I learned my lesson and basically pretended to be mute. A new entry appeared in my ledger. Compensation for deprivation of vocal cord usage, $75 per day. The most ridiculous incident was on Valentine's Day. She made me stand on the balcony in the pouring rain because Ethan had once sung to her in a storm. I ended up with a 102-degree fever. She sat by my bed, staring at my flushed face for a while before finally saying, "You don't even look like him when you have a fever." In our 3rd winter, Isabella got drunk. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she actually hugged me, burying her head in my neck and mumbling, Why can't you just be him? Before I could figure out how to respond, she pushed me away, her eyes suddenly sharp and sober. Never mind. A fake is just a fake. That night, I updated my price list. Emotional boundary violation risk fee. $1,500 per incident. It was hazardous to my health after all. Unfortunately, that line item never got used. What a shame. Now, Isabella stared at the termination agreement I'd handed her, her frown deepening. Are you really that desperate to leave? She asked. Well, your guy's coming back. You'll need some time to get your feelings in order, right? Seeing her expression darken, I quickly added, At most, I can give you a ride to the airport tomorrow to pick him up. She stared at me, silent for a long moment. Finally, she picked up a pen and signed the agreement. I'll have my finance department wire the money tomorrow, Isabella said, pushing the signed papers back to me. Excellent, Ms. Sterling. I nodded with a smile, taking the papers as my heart did a little leap. It was finally over. Now, where should I go for vacation? The next day, at 2:45 p.m., I stood half a step behind Isabella at the arrivals gate for the private terminal at JFK. My face wore the standard issue idealized gentle smile, but my mind was busy calculating my overtime pay. Ancillary services rendered, temporary overtime. Airport pickup $250, includes travel stipend. Enhanced emotional output. Gaze intensity increased by 20% $150 hazard pay for enduring Isabella's nervous grip on my arm $150 total. $550. Waive the odd 50 as a courtesy to a long-term client. I glanced at my watch. It had been 15 minutes since Ethan Cole's flight landed, but the legendary original was nowhere to be seen. Ms. Sterling, are you sure the flight wasn't delayed? I asked in a low voice. Isabella ignored me, her knuckles white as she clutched her purse strap. Geez, she's a wreck. She was never this nervous when she hired me. Just then, a commotion stirred at the end of the corridor. A man in a beige trench coat emerged, pulling a suitcase behind him. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, a faint smile playing on his lips, looking like he'd just stepped off the set of a Hallmark movie. Isabella, he said, opening his arms. Her eyes instantly reddened as she rushed forward to meet him. And I, ever the professional, immediately took 2 steps back, clearing the stage for the main event. As they lost themselves in their tearful reunion, I quietly turned to leave. Not wanting to interrupt their moment, I pulled out my phone and composed a text message. Ms. Sterling, my services as your stand-in are now officially concluded. The final invoice has been sent to your email. I wish you and Mr. Cole all the best. Please remember to leave a 5-star review. Send. Then, I walked away without a backward glance. The perfect exit. My swagger lasted all of 3 seconds. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. Tonight's gala. One last job. Double pay. I stared at the screen and raised an eyebrow. Seriously, more overtime? Fine. Who was I to argue with money? That evening at 7 p.m., in the grand ballroom of the Astoria Hotel, I stood in a corner elegantly nibbling on a petit four. I was wearing a custom-tailored suit Isabella had provided. Invoice note. Wardrobe rental fee, $1,200. Watching the reunion tour of Isabella and Ethan. Ethan, how'd you been all these years? Isabella asked, her voice soft, her eyes practically melting. Ethan smiled, reaching up to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Terrible, of course. How could life be good without you? Ugh. I nearly choked on my pastry and quickly took a gulp of champagne to wash it down. Just then, Ethan's head turned, and his eyes found me. The smile remained on his lips, but his gaze turned cold. And who is this? Isabella's expression froze for a second. My assistant. Excuse me? 3 years as a stand-in, and now I'm demoted to assistant. That's a hell of a pay cut, boss. Oh, right. Assistant was my official title on paper. But everyone in our circle knew the truth. My mistake. Before I could say anything, Ethan was already walking toward me, looking me up and down with a condescending air. So you're the stand-in. The ballroom lights glinted off his face, and I noticed the fine lines around his eyes were more pronounced than they had been at the airport. So this is the original. Not so impressive up close. I swallowed the last of my pastry and put on my professional smile. Mr. Cole, you have a good eye. He let out a short, humorless laugh, his voice low. A fake is still a fake, no matter how good the copy is. Oh, was that a challenge? I swirled the champagne in my glass, a slow grin spreading across my face. This party just got interesting. You're absolutely right, mister. Cole, I said, my tone sincere as I nodded, which is why I've always admired the original. After all, to make someone pay a fortune for a fake, the real thing must be pretty disappointing, right? Ethan's smile cracked. Isabella gasped. Listen, buddy, I'm on my way out. I'm about to be gloriously unemployed, and you want to start something with me now? If I didn't have an outstanding invoice, I swear. Okay, deep breaths. The check hasn't cleared yet. Be professional. Be the bigger man. I elegantly raised my glass to them both. I wish you two a long and happy life together. And with that, I'm clocking out. As I turned to leave, I heard Ethan's voice, tight with anger. Isabella, this is the thing you hired to replace me. Thing. Now, I had to say something. Everyone saw it. He started it. I paused, turning back to wink at him. Mr. Cole, being a stand-in is a skilled profession. Please be mindful of workplace discrimination. Also, you have a piece of spinach in your teeth. Ethan's mouth snapped shut. I made my exit. So satisfying. The next morning, Isabella sat at the dining table. Arthur, the house manager, approached with a tray. Ms. Sterling, your coffee. Isabella looked up, and her brow immediately knitted together. The liquid in the cup was black as ink. It lacked the familiar layer of microfoam, and the small dish with a single sugar cube was missing. This isn't. She stopped herself mid-sentence. This wasn't the coffee Leo prepared. Leo knew she liked a double shot, extra foam, 1 lump of sugar, and the temperature precisely 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Leo would. Mr. Cole said black coffee is healthier, Arthur explained. He gave the kitchen specific instructions. Yawning, Ethan ambled into the dining room from the guest bedroom. Morning, Isabella. His eyes landed on the coffee cup. You should cut back on all that sweet, milky stuff. A nutritionist I know in Switzerland says that pure black coffee is the only way to. I have a sensitive stomach. Isabella cut him off. My doctor recommended adding milk. She was already annoyed. She had intended to send Ethan home after their late-night chat, but he'd claimed it was too late and inconvenient. Reluctantly, she'd let him stay in the guest room. Ethan shrugged, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl and taking a loud bite. Suit yourself. Anyway, I was thinking of checking out some cars today. I heard a new limited edition Porsche just arrived stateside. Isabella stared at the black coffee, a wave of absurdity washing over her. For 3 years, a perfect cup of coffee had appeared at her side every morning, right on time. She never had to ask for it, just as she never had to remind the sun to rise. Before, she began, looking at Arthur. How did Leo prepare my coffee? Mr. Hayes always prepared it himself, ma'am. He said he had memorized your preferences. Leo, that stand-in from yesterday? Ethan's eyes narrowed. Isabella didn't answer. She lifted the black coffee, took a sip, and the bitterness instantly flooded her senses. This wasn't the taste she was used to. It wasn't prepared by the person she was used to, either. I have an early meeting, she said, putting the cup down and standing abruptly. Arthur had the car brought around. As she left the dining room, she heard Ethan complaining behind her, "What meeting is this early? I wasn't finished talking about the Porsche." Isabella settled into the back seat of the car and habitually reached for the seatbelt, only to find it was already perfectly arranged, the buckle facing outward, positioned for her to grasp it effortlessly. It was Leo's habit. She froze, her fingers hovering in midair. For 3 years, every time she got in the car, the seatbelt was waiting for her at this exact angle. She had always assumed it was Frank, the driver, but now she realized it was the quiet, meticulous care of someone else. To the office, Ms. Sterling, Frank asked from the driver's seat. Isabella nodded, raising the privacy divider. She needed quiet. She needed to understand why a cup of coffee and a seatbelt could make her feel so unsettled. Her phone vibrated. It was a calendar notification from her executive assistant. 9:00 a.m. Video conference with a client from our overseas division. 10:30 a.m. Preliminary board meeting. 1 p.m. Her gaze stopped on a familiar entry. 3 p.m. File contract termination agreement for Leo Hayes. She should have deleted that yesterday. The contract was terminated, the papers were signed, and the payment was settled. Leo Hayes had nothing to do with her anymore. Her thumb hovered over the delete button, but she couldn't bring herself to press it. "We're here, Ms. Sterling." Frank's voice startled her. Isabella took a deep breath and locked her phone. She was the head of Sterling Industries. She couldn't let herself get distracted by a cup of coffee and a former employee. The elevator doors opened, and her assistant greeted her with a look of surprise. "Ms. Sterling, you're in so early today, Mr. Hayes hasn't even." The assistant clamped her mouth shut, her face turning pale. Isabella gave her a cold look. "Leo won't be coming back. Inform HR to start looking for a new assistant immediately." She strode toward her office, hearing her assistant's hushed voice on the phone behind her. "Yes, Ms. Sterling has arrived." "No, you don't need to prepare any coffee." Everything in her office was the same, only now it was missing a quiet presence, a cup of perfectly tempered coffee, and a person who would silently dim the lights whenever she frowned. The door to her office was thrown open, and Ethan strode in, her flustered assistant trailing behind him. "Ms. Sterling, Mr. Cole insisted on seeing you. I told him you were preparing for the board meeting." "It's fine, Sarah," Isabella said, setting down her documents. "You can go." As the door clicked shut, Ethan was already surveying her office, his eyes finally landing on the quarterly report on her desk. "This is your performance from last quarter." He let out a low whistle. "Worse than I thought. An investment banker I know in Switzerland, his smallest project have yields twice as high as this." Isabella's hand, holding a pen, paused. She slowly set the pen down, lacing her fingers together on the desk. "Ethan, the board meeting is about to start. Can we talk about this later?" "The board meeting? Perfect." Ethan's eyes lit up. "I'll go with you. It's time they met the future man of the house." "That's not appropriate. You're not a member of this company, and what's not appropriate?" Ethan cut her off. "When I was on Wall Street, these old dinosaurs were still playing in the mud. They need new blood and international perspective." He leaned over her desk, bracing his hands on its surface. "Isabella, you need to learn to let the professionals take over. Give me a 5% stake, and I'll help you turn this place around. Think of it as compensation for our youth. Besides, I've seen your investment portfolio. It's a mess. If it were me." "Mr. Cole." Isabella's sharp interruption made him freeze. "First," she said, her voice dripping with ice, "Sterling's investment strategy has been thoroughly vetted by a team of professionals. Second, a board meeting is not a social event. It doesn't require an international perspective. And finally," she stood up, "if you're genuinely interested in contributing to the world of business, you can start by reading the company's articles of incorporation." Ethan's face flushed a deep red. "What's with the attitude? I'm trying to help you." "My meeting begins at 10 o'clock sharp," Isabella said, pressing the intercom button. "Sarah, please escort Mr. Cole to the lounge." When the door closed for the second time, Isabella took a deep breath and picked up a framed photo from her desk. It was a picture of a younger her and Ethan, a time she had always considered the best of her life. But looking at that familiar yet alien smile, she suddenly wondered if the person she remembered had ever really existed at all. Rule number 3. All sales are final. No customer support. 1:20 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I squinted at the screen, which glowed with Isabella Sterling's name. Seriously? The contract is over. Is she trying to resubscribe in the middle of the night? I answered, and before I could speak, Isabella's husky voice came through the line. "Leo, can you pretend to be him one more time?" The faint clinking of glasses in the background suggested she was at a bar. Well, the original is back for one day, and she's already drinking alone? I rolled over in bed. "Ms. Sterling, you're aware this is after hours," I said lazily. "My overtime rate is triple the standard." A pause on the other end. "Fine. I love a client who doesn't haggle. Text me the address." "I'll be there in 30, I said, hanging up. I immediately opened my Ledger app and added a new entry: frowny face, emergency emotional support services, temporary overtime, 1:30 a.m., TBD $180 per hour emotional labor fee. Listening to ex-boss's drama $300 transportation, Uber Black $150. At 1:58 a.m., I walked into the VIP suite at Muse Bar. Isabella was sitting alone on a leather couch, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table in front of her. She looked up at me, her eyes bloodshot. You're here. Yep. And the clock is running, I said, pointing to my watch as I sat down across from her. So, what can I do for you? Breakup counseling? A comparative analysis of your exes? Or would you prefer a live performance of the Ethan Cole experience? Her fingers tightened around her glass. Is that all you think about, the money? What else is there? I chuckled. It's not like we were ever really dating. The words seemed to sting. She threw back a mouthful of whiskey. Looks like Ethan's performance was quite the showstopper. I adjusted my expression, shifting into empathetic listener mode. So, the real thing wasn't as great as you remembered. Isabella was quiet for a long time before she finally mumbled. Today, he asked me for 5% of my company's stock. Wow, he hasn't even been back for 48 hours, and he's already hitting her up for money. I almost laughed out loud, covering it with a cough. Ahem, maybe Mr. Cole just wants to be involved in the business. No, Isabella said with a cold laugh. He called it compensation for our youth. Incredible. This Ethan guy deserved a round of applause. A move that bold was something even a professional like me could learn from. Leo, Isabella said, suddenly looking straight at me. These past 3 years, was there ever a moment, just one, where you were genuinely? Ms. Sterling, I interrupted with a polite smile. That's a premium service. It'll cost you extra. The light in her eyes died. At 3:15 a.m., it was time to settle up. I slid the itemized bill across the table. That's 1.5 hours, plus the Uber fee. Total comes to $4.20. Isabella stared at the paper, then suddenly pulled a credit card from her purse and slapped it on the table. There's a $200,000 credit line on this. From now on, stop doing this kind of work. What? I raised an eyebrow. Are you trying to buy out my entire career, Ms. Sterling? Consider it, she said, turning her face away. Severance pay. I picked up the card, twirling it between my fingers, and then I smiled. All right, but we need to be clear about one thing. What? This money buys Leo Hayes out of being your stand-in. I stood up and gave her a wink. It doesn't say anything about Leo Hayes not being allowed to date or to be a stand-in for someone else, does it? She shot up from her seat. What are you trying to say? Exactly what it sounds like. I gave the card to Johnny Wave. Starting tomorrow, you can call me Leo Hayes, professional stand-in, retired. By the way, I'd recommend you take a look at Mr. Cole's offshore bank accounts. You might find a few surprises. With that, I turned and walked out. I could hear Isabella's urgent voice behind me. Wait, what accounts? The ones where he's collecting alimony from the 3 other rich women he's been stringing along, of course. I waved over my shoulder without looking back. Post-contract consulting services are available for $1,200 an hour. Would you like to renew your subscription, Ms. Sterling? 5. A bizarre job offer. One of me. Leo's professional conundrum. Is this job self-employment or identity fraud? At 10 a.m. the next day, the Perfect Stand-In LLC officially opened for business. The office was rented. The logo was something I designed in 5 minutes on my laptop, but the confidence was 100% real. After all, in this day and age, who else had managed to turn professional impersonator into a legitimate, registered business? I was hanging my business license on the wall. Note, scope of services includes, but is not limited to, emotional surrogacy, ex-boyfriend antagonism, and idealized past lover alternatives when the doorbell chimed. Welcome, I began, turning with my most cherubic smile. A woman stood in the doorway. Dark hair, red lipstick, high heels. The Hermes bag in her hand could pay my office rent for the next 3 years. Excellent. A walking ATM. Hello, how can I help you? I immediately slipped into work mode. Breakup counseling? Upstaging an ex at a wedding? Or perhaps. I sat up straighter, putting on my professional grin. Who does the client need me to be? Celebrity? Tech billionaire? Just a heads up, I don't do anything illegal, anything that might cause hair loss, and all ex-boyfriend related services come with a 50% surcharge. I need to hire you, she interrupted, her red lips curving into a smile. To be a stand-in for the man I can't forget. Ah, classic. I pulled out my rate sheet. No problem. Could you tell me what type of person you need me to portray? We have monthly retainers, hourly rates, and... You won't be playing someone else, she said, taking a step forward. The scent of expensive perfume washed over me. I need you to play yourself, Leo Hayes. What? A question mark slowly materialized over my head. "Let me introduce myself," she said, handing me a business card. "Vivian Croft, CEO of Croft Enterprises." She let out a small laugh and pulled a contract from her bag, slapping it down on my peeling veneer reception desk. "Don't play anyone else. Just be you. You'll understand once you read this." I opened the contract, and the clauses made my temples throb. Party B, the stand-in, must adhere completely to the following specifications. Write exclusively with the left hand, regardless of dominant hand. Order mango crepe cake despite a known mango allergy. Position toothbrush in its holder at a 45-degree angle to the left before sleeping. Use only cedar-scented body wash, brand specified in Appendix A. I looked up, raising an eyebrow. "Ms. Croft, did you base your ideal man on my last physical exam report?" "Is it a close match?" she asked, taking a sip of coffee and leaving a perfect half-moon of lipstick on the rim. "That's why I came to you. Lower imitation costs." I flipped through the pages. In Clause 8 here, Party B must intentionally forego using an umbrella in the rain, claiming to enjoy the feeling. I have to ask, what brand of psychopath are we dealing with here? This brought back a very unpleasant memory of standing on Isabella's balcony. "Sound like you?" she asked, leaning in closer. "Funny you should mention it," I said, leaning back. "I just had a fever last week from getting caught in the rain." While I used to enjoy walking in the rain, my time with Isabella had given me something of an aversion to it. A shadow crossed her eyes. She immediately wrote a new clause in the addendum. Rain-related services are not mandatory and are subject to Party B's consent. If service is rendered, a bonus of $100 will be paid per instance. Any resulting illness will be covered by a separate stipend. "Well, you're certainly flexible," I noted with a laugh. "Human resources is my strong suit," Vivian smiled. "So do we have a deal?" "We have a deal," I said, picking up the pen and signing my name with a flourish. "So, let me get this straight. My last job for Isabella was based on my physical resemblance to Ethan Cole, selling my face. This new job for Vivian Croft is based on my habits resembling her old flames, selling my personality. If my next job requires my life story to match, damn, I'd have to charge by the minute for that." "Your signing bonus," she said, pushing a check across the desk. It had so many zeros I had to blink. "For the next year, just be yourself." I stared at the check, my brain running a million calculations a second. This is enough money to retire. Not having to act equals a paid vacation. But this Vivian Croft seems unhinged. Vivian leaned in again, her breath warm against my ear. "Worried it's a trap?" "Of course not. I was just..." "Just what?" she asked, tilting her head. "Nothing," I said, quickly pocketing the check. "Just curious. If this guy is so much like me, why not just hire him directly?" Her hands, smoothing her gloves, froze for a fraction of a second. "He's gone." The mood suddenly grew heavy. I quickly changed the subject. "So, do we start tomorrow?" "We start now," she said, standing up and patting me on the shoulder. "I've already ordered us a mango crepe cake for dinner." Just as I was about to reply, the door to my studio was thrown open. Isabella Sterling stood in the entrance, her eyes darting between me and Vivian. "Leo," she said with a cold smile, "is this what you call retirement?" I remained perfectly composed. "Ms. Sterling, allow me to introduce my new client, Ms. Vivian Croft." "Client?" Isabella's gaze locked onto Vivian's hand, which was still resting on my shoulder. What kind of client needs to touch your shoulder to discuss business? Vivian let out a soft laugh and suddenly cupped my chin. "Is that a service you never purchased, Ms. Sterling?" "Oh crap. Here we go. The showdown." I immediately switched into crisis management mode. "Ladies, please be advised that any additional emotional conflict services will be billed at a premium rate." "Double," Isabella snapped, throwing a black card on my desk. "Come back with me." "Triple," Vivian countered, playfully twisting my tie around her finger. "Continue fulfilling your contract." So this is what it feels like to be fought over by rich women. I took a deep breath. "Ladies, this establishment supports multiple simultaneous contracts. But please note that any physical altercations will require you to purchase insurance first." Isabella's face was thunderous. She turned and stormed out. Vivian laughed. "It seems my investment was a good one." I looked down at the contract and suddenly noticed a line of fine print at the bottom I'd missed Complimentary service add-on. Pretend to be my boyfriend to thoroughly piss off Isabella Sterling. Damn it. This woman's target was Isabella all along. Is this not a major breach of contract? Ground for a lawsuit, even. This has to be fraudulent inducement. 6. A strange new world. I had the most incredible dream. I dreamt that two gorgeous, powerful CEOs were using every trick in the book to win me over. My phone vibrated. A location pin from Isabella. The Sterling estate. Come now. 10 times your hourly rate. I was about to refuse when Vivian rested her chin on my shoulder. Going to see your ex-boss. Her warm breath tickled my ear, and the hair on my arms stood up. It's purely business. Take me with you, she said, slipping a check into my pocket. I'll pay 10 times a rate. At the Sterling family estate in Greenwich, Isabella was clutching my elementary school pencil case, her eyes filled with tears. Across from her, Vivian was protectively hugging my old high school jacket, and I was standing on a coffee table. That's right, on a coffee table. It gave me a better vantage point. Ladies, I said, holding up my phone with the voice recorder on, this official hearing is now in session. Who would like to make an opening statement? Isabella jumped in first. Leo, if you come back, you'll get 50% of my company's stock. Vivian scoffed. I've already had his entire college course schedule minted as an NFT. What kind of deranged collector was she? I massaged my temples. In English, please. Marry me, Vivian said, slapping a stack of deeds on the table. 3 penthouses overlooking Central Park, all in your name. Isabella slammed her company seal down. Sign this contract right now, and you'll be the second largest shareholder in Sterling Industries. Wow, my market value was skyrocketing. I took a deep breath and smiled. Have you both forgotten something? They both froze. I, Leo Hayes, am a professional stand-in. I hopped off the coffee table, and rule number 1 is, no romantic entanglements. A loud voice boomed from the doorway. We all whipped our heads around. It was Kevin, the assistant from my new studio, holding a banner that read, "The Professional Stand-In Guild solemnly protests emotional blackmail." Kevin's eyes were brimming with tears. President Hayes, the entire guild supports your fight for your rights. When the hell did I become president? See, you can't trap me. If you want me, you have to show some sincerity. Half an hour later, my living room was packed with my professional colleagues. Leo, a girl with glasses cried out, holding up her ledger. A client forcibly kissed me last month, and I didn't even bill for emotional damages. Me too, a muscular guy added, pulling up his shirt. This rich lady hired me to cosplay her dead husband. Then she started grabbing my abs in the middle of the night. Vivian and Isabella were squeezed into a corner, looking like they had stumbled into a strange new world. I stood on the dining table, banging a pot with a ladle. Comrades, we stand-ins are legitimate professionals. The room erupted in applause. All jobs require a signed contract. All overtime must be paid at triple the rate. We refuse to tolerate workplace harassment. Isabella timidly raised her hand. That time I grabbed your arm. It's been documented. I brandished an Excel spreadsheet on my tablet. A total of 37 work-related injuries. Vivian suddenly laughed. Leo, the way you look right now. Don't laugh. Laughing won't win me over. After the crowd dispersed, the two women stared at me. I admit my mistakes, Isabella said, looking down. But can you give me a chance to make it right? Vivian toyed with my old student ID. The choice is yours. I looked at the billionaire CEO on my left and the beautiful, decade-long obsessive on my right. And then I remembered something. Hold on, I said, pulling out my calculator. Shouldn't we first calculate the money you both owe me? Ms. Sterling, 3 years of overtime, pay plus emotional damages comes to a total of $287,000. And Ms. Croft, your unauthorized investigation into my personal life is a gross violation of my privacy rights. Their expressions slowly crumble. We could talk about love later. Shouldn't we settle the labor disputes and compensation claims first? They both fell to their knees and grabbed my legs. No, Leo, please. We can't live without you. I stood with my hands on my hips. Ha ha, look at you now. What are you smiling about? A cold voice snapped me awake. I shot my eyes open to see Vivian staring down at me. Damn it, what a weird dream. Must have been a good one. You're drooling, Vivian said with a smirk. It was nothing. Just dreamt of some delicious food, I mumbled, quickly wiping my mouth. If she knew what I was really dreaming about, she'd probably have me thrown in the East River. All right, get up, Vivian said, standing. Time to get to work. You got it, boss. I shot up from the couch with a renewed sense of purpose. 7. A familiar scene when Vivian led me into a dusty old bookstore tucked away in an alley. A small bell on the wooden door jingled. Boss, is this part of the job description? I asked, eyeing the grimy shelves. The contract didn't say anything about bookstore excursions. It does now, she said, pulling out a hardcover edition of The Little Prince. Her fingertips traced the yellowed pages. Clause 7. Party B must accompany the employer on weekly bookstore visits and share their favorite childhood book. Right? For this kind of salary, I could browse bookstores. The pay almost felt unearned. I randomly grabbed a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from the sci-fi section. This was my favorite when I was a kid. Vivian suddenly laughed. Like a magician, she produced an identical, well-worn copy from her purse. It still had a New York Public Library sticker on the cover, and on the spine, written in faint pencil, were the letters L. 2009. What a coincidence, she said, holding up the book. He used to hide this exact book under his desk to read during class. I flipped to the title page, and my breath caught in my throat. That crooked L. E. It was the same mark I used to make in library books when I skipped class in middle school, so no one else would take them. That has to be a coincidence, right? Over the next few weeks, Vivian kept taking me to places to relive her memories with her old flame, but something felt increasingly off. One day, she took me to a secluded cafe. Are you sure about this, boss? I asked, staring at the double espresso she had ordered for me. Clause 7, she said, tapping the rim of the cup. Party B must consume black coffee in the employer's presence and feign enjoyment. Fine, as long as she paid extra. I lifted the tiny cup, and under Vivian's intense gaze, I took a sip. The bitterness exploded on my tongue. I fought to keep my expression neutral. I only ever drank lattes with 3 sugars. Is it good? She asked, resting her chin on her hand. It's very invigorating. I lied, subtly pushing the cup an inch away. Vivian suddenly reached out and pulled the cup back in front of me. She took a small spoon and gently stirred the surface, and a lopsided heart shape appeared in the crema. He used to lie to me like that, too, she said with a soft laugh. He hated black coffee, but always pretended to be more mature than he was. I stared at the dissolving heart, and a knot formed in my stomach. I used to do the exact same thing in high school. In the study of Vivian's apartment, she handed me a piece of paper. Write something, she said, tapping a blank space. With your left hand? I raised an eyebrow. I'm right-handed, boss. Just try, she smiled. I'll add 5,000 to your pay. I picked up the pen and scrawled, Vivian Croft is the weirdest employer in the world. Even I was stunned when I finished. The handwriting was identical to my high school scrawl that teachers used to call chicken scratch. Vivian picked up the paper, her fingers gently tracing the ink. It's a perfect match. A match for who? For you, she said, then corrected herself. For him. Another evening, the forecast called for rain, but Vivian insisted we go out without umbrellas. Contract addendum, she said, pointing to her phone. Party B must walk in the rain and claim to enjoy it. You're adding clauses now? I squinted at the sky. This is last-minute overtime. Double my hourly rate. Deal. The moment the rain started to fall, Vivian grabbed my hand, and we started running down the street. Puddles splashed onto the hem of her designer dress, but she was laughing like a student skipping class to go to the arcade. Are you crazy? I yelled, wiping rain from my face. He used to say that to me, too, she said, catching her breath, her eyes shining. My heart skipped a beat. The scene was terrifyingly familiar. That night, staying in her guest room, I noticed 2 identical toothbrushes in the bathroom. One was angled precisely 45 degrees to the left in its holder, exactly how I kept mine at home. The other one stood perfectly straight, with a small label that read, Leo for use. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, and a chill went down my spine. Vivian, who the hell are you seeing when you look at me? 8. Double showdown. Leo's current status, being treated like the grand prize at a 2-person auction. I should have known it was a trap when Vivian took me to a bridal shop. Clause 7, she said, waving her phone. Must act as fiancé when necessary. I glanced down at my mental ledger for the day. Stand-in service add-ons. Bridal shop escort. $100 base fee. Fitting room sentry duty. $50. Anti-paparazzi insurance. Fake smile service. $100 per hour. Putting on the veil costs extra. I added, pointing to my imaginary price list. And physical contact is billed separately. Vivian simply tucked a check into the collar of my shirt. You're bought for the day. Fine. Her money, her rules. A sales assistant eagerly handed me a tuxedo. The groom can try this one on. I was heading for the changing room when Vivian grabbed my tie. Wait. She reached up and adjusted my bow tie, her fingers brushing against my throat. She nodded, satisfied. There. Now you look like yourself. Like myself. What kind of twisted role play is this? Just as I was being forced to pose for the 17th fake candid photo, the door to the shop was thrown open. Isabella Sterling stormed in, her makeup flawless but her eyes wild, looking like she'd just come from a hostile takeover. Leo, she grabbed my wrist. Whatever she's paying you, I'll double it. Now, come back with me. The photographer's camera fell to the floor with a clatter. The entire shop went silent. Everyone was watching the real-life soap opera unfold. I sighed and pulled out my phone, displaying the electronic contract. The early termination fee is $5 million. I accept all major credit cards and wire transfers. Isabella's hand trembled. You're really marrying her. You misunderstand, Ms. Sterling, Vivian said, wrapping her arms around my neck from behind. Her red lips were almost touching my ear. We're just fulfilling the terms of our contract. Right, darling? The way she purred the last word sent a shiver down my spine. That's right, I said, giving Isabella my most professional smile. Ms. Croft hired me to be myself. It's a perfect professional fit. Isabella's face went blank. As if that wasn't enough, Vivian added with a saccharine smile. Why? Are you interested in a bridesmaid dress, Ms. Sterling? I can get you a 10% discount. Isabella chased us all the way to the parking garage, where Vivian had already pushed me into the passenger seat. Leo, she yelled, pounding on the car window. You'd rather be a stand-in than choose me? The rain plastered her hair to her face, ruining her perfect chignon. She actually looked pathetic. I lowered the window a crack. A correction, Ms. Croft hired me to be myself. That's called getting paid to be a real person. I can give you more. She shouted. Stock, real estate, anything. Why does that sound so familiar? Is this my dream coming true? Vivian suddenly slammed on the gas. I quickly pulled my head back inside, but I heard her yell out the window, Ms. Sterling, instead of screaming here, why don't you go find out who really helped you all those years ago? What are you talking about? Isabella yelled back. Her only answer was the squeal of tires. In the rearview mirror, her figure grew smaller and smaller until she disappeared into the rain. Wait a minute. What did Vivian mean by that? I turned to look at her, but she was staring straight ahead, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Don't worry. The contract includes a clause for handling interference from ex-lovers. Since when was that in there? Page 38, line 6 of the addendum, she said dismissively. By the way, you looked at her for more than 3 seconds. I'm docking you $500. This was a scam. A total scam. 9. The truth at the end of the contract. Leo Hayes' rule number 4. The show is over. The check is cleared. But now, something feels very, very wrong. I accidentally found my way into Vivian's third-floor study. It wasn't an office. It was a museum. My museum. Pinned to the walls were faded photos from my high school track meets. A glass cabinet displayed the fountain pen I used in 10th grade. There was even a laminated copy of my work schedule from the bubble tea shop I worked at in college. But the most chilling discovery was a small metal box in her desk drawer. I opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of cotton, was one of my baby teeth. A small, neatly written label was attached. Leo Hayes, first canine, naturally lost 5/18, 2010. I held the tooth, my fingers trembling. I found Vivian on the second floor and placed the evidence in front of her. Boss, would you classify this as a pathological obsession? Vivian sat at her desk, looking stunned. How did you get in there? I thought it was locked. You found it all. I don't know, the lock just. Open. But you can't just go in there, Vivian said, deflated. The contract didn't specify any off-limit rooms, I said, holding up the metal box. But don't you think this clause is a little extreme? She sighed, a look of helplessness on her face. Since you know, the contract is terminated. She pulled out her checkbook and scribbled down a number. The payment and the penalty fee will be paid in full. I watched her, and then I grabbed her hand before she could rip up the contract. Wait, just tell me what the hell is going on. Was your long-lost love me? Her eyes turned red. What did you expect? For me to tell you I've been stalking you like a psychopath for 10 years? That I collected your old pens and the worn-out books you used to read? She pointed at the box. That I even kept your baby teeth? Vivian, I said slowly. Who were you seeing when you looked at me? Silence. You, she shouted, tears suddenly streaming down her face. It was always you. The 17-year-old Leo who secretly passed me a mango sandwich in the nurse's office. The 20-year-old Leo who hid in the corner of the library reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The idiot Leo standing right here who can't even recognize himself. So it really was me? I was my own stand-in. The absurdity of it was staggering. Vivian silently pulled a photo album from a shelf. The first page was a high school orientation photo. There I was, and there she was in adjacent lines with 3 people between us. Sophomore transfer student, class 2 to 3, Vivian Croft, she said, pointing to a girl with a ponytail. You wouldn't remember. I frowned. We knew each other. You gave me half of your sandwich, she said with a faint smile. Mango-filled. You had an allergic reaction right after and ended up in the nurse's office. A memory flashed. The white curtains of the nurse's office, the nurse's worried voice, and a blurry figure sitting by my bed. I was in a car accident and had to take a year off, she continued. By the time I came back, you had already graduated. So you hired me. To be yourself, she finished looking down. I just wanted to be sure that you were the same person from back then. So, my voice was a little hoarse. You looked for me all this time, just to confirm I was that person? Yes, she said without looking up. But that's not all. I looked down at the photo in my hands. 17-year-old me playing basketball, and there she was in the corner of the bleachers, the focus blurry, but the light in her eyes unmistakable. Vivian, I took a deep breath. Even if I am that person, it doesn't mean I'm the idealized man you have in your head. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? The man you remember is perfect. He's a memory with a filter on it, I said with a wry smile. The me in your head is flawless. I can't compete with him. Because I'm a real person, not a ghost. I have a temper, I hold grudges, I make stupid mistakes, and I know. She cut me off, her voice rising. I know you have flaws. I know you hate using an umbrella and get a cold every time it rains. I know you're allergic to mangoes, but you still sneak a bite anyway. I was stunned into silence. Her eyes were red as she walked toward me. Leo, what do you think I've been observing for 3 years? Some perfect phantom. I was observing the real you. Her finger jabbed at my chest. The you who oversleeps, who calculates his bills down to the last cent, who even cuts his finger chopping vegetables. Then why make me play him? Because I wanted to see you be yourself, she said, her voice trembling with frustration. But you son of a bitch, you charge a fee even to be yourself. The air went still, and then we both started to laugh. So, I said, reaching up to wipe a tear from her cheek, you're in love with the current, penny-pinching Leo? Not just him, she said, grabbing my wrist. I'm also in love with the 17-year-old who hid library books, the 20-year-old who fell asleep during his shift at the bubble tea shop, and the one standing in front of me right now. She paused, then a smile broke through. Who gets jealous of himself? I looked down at her. Do I still have to pay the termination fee? You do, she said, grabbing my tie and pulling me closer. You can pay it off over a lifetime. Outside, the early summer breeze rustled the curtains. I picked up the half-torn contract and glanced at the penalty clause. $5 million. You know, boss, I said with a grin, there's a loophole in this contract. What? It never specified who the target persona was. I uncapped a pen and added a new line in the blank space. Party A, Vivian Croft, hereby hires Party B, Leo Hayes, to portray the most authentic version of Leo Hayes. Vivian stared at me, speechless. So, I said, capping the pen. The question is no longer whether you want to keep employing me. I took a step closer, so near I could smell the jasmine in her hair. It's whether I want to accept this job. Her eyelashes fluttered. What are the new terms? The hourly rate is 0, I murmured, leaning down. And the contract term is indefinite. The tips of Vivian's ears turned bright red. She snatched the contract and slapped it against my chest. Deal. Outside, the sun was shining. 10. The misplaced pumpkin lantern. Leo Hayes's rule number 5. A stand-in never looks back. When Isabella Sterling burst into my studio, she was clutching a faded orange paper lantern. It was crudely made, like a kindergarten art project, with a lopsided smile drawn on it in crayon. Leo, the high school English speech competition, she said, her voice urgent. The person who handed me this backstage. It was you, wasn't it? What? The familiar object unlocked a memory. I was 17 again, in the auditorium backstage. A girl was clutching her speech, trembling so hard her lips were white. I was passing the dressing room when I heard her quiet sobs. On an impulse, I had grabbed a promotional flyer, folded it into a makeshift pumpkin, and poked 2 holes in it, placing it over a small lamp. If you're scared, just look at this, I told her. Imagine the judges are all just pumpkin heads. She had laughed, and the warm light filtering through the paper illuminated the tears in her eyes. You were that nervous girl? I asked. Yes. It was me. It was you. Only you would know those details. Her voice cracked. But Ethan, he lied and told me he made it for me. She gritted her teeth. Yesterday, I showed it to him, wanting to finally give his pumpkin back. The paper lantern trembled in her hands. And he asked me, where did you pick up this piece of trash? And look, it has the letters L, Ush, on it. That's you, isn't it? I peered closer. I think so. It's been a long time. You two look so much alike. I'm sorry, Leo. It's my fault I'm so bad with faces. Isabella wept. You gave me the confidence to win that competition, and I treated you like a substitute. You won because you were good. I just happened to be there. No, it was you. Isabella insisted. Come back. Not as a stand-in. Come work at the company. Name your salary. Name my salary? But I enjoy being a kept man. What now? Besides, isn't it a little too late for all this? Isabella pressed the lantern to her chest. I bought the paper factory that made the flyers. I have them make pumpkin lanterns for me every day. Ms. Sterling, I said gently. It's too late. I'm already taken. Vivian, Isabella whispered, stunned. Yes, I smiled. Vivian tossed me the key to her safe. Pick a ring. The safe was filled with old photos of me and books from my school days. At the very bottom was a small note. I've been stealing glimpses of you for 10 years. Now it's your turn to steal me. I picked up a ring, cornered her against the open safe door, and dropped to one knee. Marry me, yes or no? That's a very domineering proposal. Vivian huffed. I'm the domineering CEO here. Thank you very much. All right, I laughed, adjusting my approach. My dearest Vivian, will you marry me? First, you have to tell me what Isabella Sterling wanted, she said with a sly smile. Only then will I give you an answer. I already told you. She figured out I was the one who helped her at the speech competition. You knew about that, didn't you? She hooked her arms around my neck. Of course I knew. I was in that competition too. And you didn't give me a pumpkin lantern. I said, embarrassed. You probably didn't look nervous. Stop changing the subject. Continue the proposal. Ahem. Vivian, will you? Yes, she said. But first, you sign a contract. Term, 10,000 years. The penalty for breach of contract is your heart. Deal, I said, standing up and sliding the ring on her finger. Outside, the early summer breeze rustled the curtains. 11. The rule about no romance. Leo Hayes. Rule number 6 of being a stand-in. To hell with the rules, I'm retired. The wind on a rooftop was strong, making the blank check in Isabella's hand flap loudly. I heard you're getting married. Next month, I nodded. Don't forget to send a gift. Leo, didn't you say one of your rules was no romantic entanglements? I'm retired, I smiled. And my new salary is 0. I'm working for free now. Isabella stared at me, speechless. You can fill in any number you want on this, she said, stepping forward and pushing the check toward me, her eyes red-rimmed. her voice trembling. Just leave, Vivian. Come back to me. I looked at her, and the whole situation suddenly felt absurd. Ms. Sterling, he sighed. Have you forgotten? You were the one who terminated our contract. Isabella gave a bitter laugh. That was before I knew you were. She trailed off, her voice dropping. Before I knew what I really wanted. The wind whipped her hair across her face, and she tucked it behind her ear. I was silent for a moment before I finally spoke. Isabella. The use of her first name made her catch her breath. Everything between us is over, I said, looking her directly in the eye. You know, my relationship with you was purely professional. There were never any real feelings involved. That doesn't matter, she said quickly, as long as you're by my side. Her voice was almost pleading. Not as a stand-in, not as an assistant. Just be yourself. Or, if you want to start your own business, I'll back you. Whatever you want. That won't be necessary, Ms. Sterling. I interrupted, my tone calm but firm. I'm in love with someone else. I'm sorry. My words crushed her. She stood there, frozen for a long time. The wind picked up, and the blank check slipped from her fingers. It tumbled through the night air, flipping and spinning before falling into the river of traffic 100 stories below, swallowed by the neon lights and taillights. The city glowed on her pale face, her silhouette looking fragile and lonely at the edge of the roof. As I turned to leave, I heard her whisper so faintly I almost missed it. So I was the stand-in all along. Her voice was lost in the wind, and there was no one left to answer. On the way home, Vivian suddenly pulled the car over by the river. What did Isabella offer you? She asked, rolling down the window. A blank check, I confessed, and she offered to fund my startup. How much did you fill it out for? I didn't touch it, I said. The wind took it. She narrowed her eyes. Were you tempted? Of course, I said, leaning closer to her ear. But I turned her down. Why? She clearly has feelings for you. She just made a mistake. Vivian laughed. Tell you what, you can call her over. I'll be the wife. She can be the mistress. Let's not. That's not a good fit for me, I said, knowing she was joking. Unless I had a death wish, I wasn't agreeing to that. And why isn't it a good fit? First, you've already bought me for life, I said. Second, my doctor said I have a weak jaw. I'm only suited for a soft life. So, starting a business is out of the question. Vivian burst out laughing. Liar. I think you still have feelings for her. She suddenly turned serious. Let me ask you this. What if she had figured out you were the one from the speech competition 6 months earlier? That was a dangerous question. The city lights shimmered on the river's surface. I took her hand from the steering wheel. There's no point in what ifs. Having you right now is more than enough. I paused, and my most important plan right now is to turn my stand-in studio into an emotional consulting firm to help people who are lost in love. With you, I don't need to be a stand-in anymore. I thought you were living this soft life. I am, but I still have to support you, don't I? My answer made her eyes sparkle in the dark. Let's go home, she said, stepping on the gas. I need to show you my collection. What collection is so urgent? The essentials like my Balenciaga stockings. And then there's... Move over, I said urgently. I'm driving. You're too slow. The car sped off into the night. In the rearview mirror, the city lights along the riverbank looked like fallen stars.